Taoiseach, since we met last week, 4,124 people have been diagnosed with COVID-19 and a further 337 people have sadly passed away. Our thoughts are with the families and loved ones of those who have passed away, and wishing all of those who have been diagnosed with symptoms a speedy recovery. I'm thinking in particular of my friend and neighbour, Kieran Maguire, who sadly lost his life in the last few days. I'm thinking of his family at this time. Taoiseach, we're in the middle of the biggest public health crisis that the state has ever faced. I want to preface what I'm about to say by thanking absolutely everyone who is working so hard across government, NEPIT, the HSE in this crisis, and indeed across society, all the way down to the retail workers in the shops and everywhere else, who I greatly admire and I know we all do. They are all heroes in our battle and we truly cherish them. However, Taoiseach, I am seriously concerned about transparency in decision-making in this crisis, and I wish to concentrate on that today. When the crisis broke, we in our party stood alone in asking for an Oireachtas all-party committee to ensure accountability and transparency. It didn't happen. It was dismissed by many in this House. Now I hear correctly across politics talk of the lack of democratic accountability and lack of transparency 7 weeks later. And this process which we are going through in here right now does not negate that fact. I want to ask you, Taoiseach, today about governance across this crisis and how decisions are being made. The National Public Health Emergency Team was convened by you on the 27th of January for COVID-19. It was previously convened in 2019 to deal with the CPE bacterial superbug. Interestingly, the terms of reference for the CPE was significantly longer and more detailed compared to COVID, which is ironic. A Cabinet subcommittee has been set up by the Government to help manage this crisis. This is serviced by a senior officers group and its subgroup, the communications group, which then leads into the National Public Health Emergency Team, which includes an expert advisory group and has 11 subgroups, ranging from acute hospitals preparedness subgroup to behavioural change subgroup and so on and so forth. So I'd like to ask the following questions today, Taoiseach. I looked up the membership of NEPIT, and it seems to have grown substantially since it was set up. Did the Government agree to all the new members who joined it? And if so, where is this documented? If not, who appoints the members of NEPIT? Is it a case of the chair or other members deciding what other public health officials or others are to be invited onto the group? What is the process for approving new members? For example, the minutes of 2 months ago in the third or fourth meeting note expansion of NEPIT membership. It was agreed to expand the membership of the team to include a general practitioner, an intensive care specialist and an infectious disease consultant, and invites will issue to join the meeting on Tuesday next, 3rd of April 2020. Obviously, nursing homes weren't included. So how were one picked over the other? And who made those decisions? Interestingly enough, only notes are recorded of meetings. So I want to ask you quite clearly, are these actual minutes? And if not, why not? There is a big difference. Minutes reflect the record of the meeting and must be agreed at the beginning of the next meeting. Notes could be a subjective view of what happened. Were all these notes agreed by the participants after each meeting? Future generations will want to know and deserve to know, Taoiseach, where people stood on decisions. And for me, it's not transparent. Why are notes or minutes no longer being published since the end of March? I've searched and searched everywhere. The group is meeting twice weekly, but there are no minutes. We can't see transparently how decisions are being taken, and I believe this isn't acceptable, surely. There's a huge volume of people on this committee now, and no disagreements and any decisions have been documented, which is noteworthy. It is something I believe each member should consider, as obviously all decisions will have a historical review at some stage, the issues arising in the nursing home sector being the most obvious example. For example, on the last published meeting note, which is on the 31st of March, they discussed the paper for childcare for healthcare workers. It doesn't say why the paper wasn't agreed. It doesn't transparently say what decision was made. And this is an issue that the government are still grappling with. But we can't see why the paper, which, in fairness, the Minister for Health showed me he had 6 weeks ago, still hasn't been able to get through. I want to ask, how many subgroups are there now in existence under NPHET? 11 are listed in the National Action Plan. There are little or actually no minutes published for most of them, nearly any of them. What are they doing, and can we see minutes? Or are there actually any minutes? Will all the market research and survey data from the communications subgroup be published? Who sits on this subgroup? It's referenced a number of times in some of the few sets of minutes we have, but I would like to know what it is doing. Why unusually is the Department of Health Secretary-General or HSE Director-General not attending? I would have thought that they would be intrinsic members of this committee. And what happens if either or both disagree with any decisions? When the CMO made the decision a number of weeks ago to set a target of 15,000 tests a day and 100,000 a week, which you referenced earlier, by May the 5th, actually Minister Harris said that he expected it within days a month ago, but anyway, we'll stick to May the 5th. Did the CMO, through NPHET, do so with the agreement of the HSE, who ultimately would be responsible for making such a testing regime possible in such a short space of time? I agree with it, by the way, but I'm not of the belief, I'm not certain, which I think you're in the same position, that it can be delivered. But I want to know, why was there a decision made to announce this if the HSE didn't believe they could deliver it? Of course, we can't see that because there are no minutes. Critically, has the HSE or its board communicated in any way with you, Taoiseach, the government, the Minister for Health and or the Department of Health regarding their concerns over overall governance of decision-making in this crisis? And if so, will you tell us about it, or will you publish any such communication? So who is NPHET ultimately accountable to? On a day-to-day basis, I understand they advise the government. Who makes the final decisions? Do NPHET have to consult with you or the Minister for Health before making formal daily announcements that affect all our citizens? I presume they do so you might tell us how. So I just want to make sure we have democratic accountability and scrutiny, Taoiseach. And to date, I, and I believe all of us in here, in this House, have fully trusted everyone and continue to do so. But the lack of information on processes and decision-making, as I have just outlined, means I have to ask these questions on behalf of everybody out there in the public. Ultimate decision-making cannot be in the hands of the few. Elected office cannot be subservient in this crisis. We have to heed public health advice. That is absolute. However, we also need to make sure that the formulas for providing this critical public health advice are working, they are robust, and most importantly, they are transparent. I trust your belief that they are working. I really do. But they're certainly not transparent. I say all this today also as we look to chart a roadmap out of this crisis. Taoiseach, it must be a roadmap decided ultimately by you, as I said last week, and your government, but shaped by this chamber. The kite flying and mixed messaging from you and the Minister for Health last weekend must end. Remember, absolutely everybody in this country is hanging on your every single word and pronouncement. The roadmap must take full cognizance of NPHET's views regarding COVID. However, it critically also must take cognizance of wider health concerns, where participation in normal health procedures is now substantially down. We have huge evidence of this. And may I also add, screening is non-existent. This will no doubt result in secondary effects, with some of the population having negative health outcomes and loss of life resulting. So the roadmap must also consider wider public concerns, health concerns, but also social and economic, that have a wider impact on the health of our people and indeed the future of our country. It must be holistic, and that may mean on occasion you and your government may have to balance your decisions in a way that you have not done so up to this point. I wish you well in doing so. Thank you.